In this video, I'm going to show you how we went from this to this, from this to this, from this to this, this to this, this to this. Okay, you get the idea. More wiring upgrades, more spools of tinned marine wire in just about every size, all kinds of heat shrink connectors and ring terminals, new bus bars for the AC and the DC side, new fuse panels. But you know what? I've spent countless hours on this boat going through wire after wire, finding all kinds of hazards and bad connections all over the place. And you know what I don't want to have on this boat? A fire. So every hour spent on this, totally worth it. So you remember how nasty the bilge and all the wiring was when we bought the boat? Pretty gross, right? Just about every connection we have, from the batteries to the new switches to the nav station where most of the bus bars and breakers are, have been changed out. If you're wondering why the wiring looks like hot dog colors, most people attribute 12-volt DC wiring as being red for positive and black for negative, but on a boat where we also have 120-volt AC, just like in most houses here, black is the hot wire, and it can be pretty easy to get a black hot AC wire mixed up with a black DC ground wire. So the new standard is to use yellow for DC negative. Just an FYI. So starting with the heart of our DC electrical system, the batteries. When we bought the boat, there were 4 6-volt Trojan lead-acid batteries for our house bank, and that only lasted a couple of years before we started having problems. Same went for our starting battery for the diesel. As much as lithium batteries sounded like a good idea, the price attached didn't. I acquired some good, gently used 12-volt gel batteries that would get us by for now. A big advantage is that they're sealed and hopefully they'll last a little bit longer. The wiring between all the old batteries and to half of the stuff on this boat for that matter was really just scary to me. If I'm going to have my family on this boat away from land at all, I really wanted to redo a lot of it and make everything oversized and minimize any possibility of wires heating up anywhere. I used 4-aught for the battery connections to the main fuse panel and the wiring to the inverter. Spent a good amount of time cutting, crimping, and heat shrinking, but the outcome was very satisfying, and the help along the way was second to none. I got 4-aught wiring going from each battery to the Class T 400 amp fuse. I have all the fuses labeled and all the wires labeled going to various places. I got 4-aught going to the inverter charger. The rest is mostly 1-aught. One goes to a switch for our house switch right here, so I have 1-aught going all the way to the nav station to our 12-volt panel, going to this 80 amp breaker right here. And from there, it distributes to 3 different spots. I have 6 gauge going to each bank of my 12-volt DC panels. I have probably 8 gauge going to this unswitched distribution block for various things. Bilge pump, stereo memory, antenna switch. I have 2 switched panels for the fans, which runs off of a fan breaker, and for the forward head and the macerator pumps, which also runs off of a separate breaker. I've got some of the breakers replaced, the main 30 amp double pole breaker replaced. Every single ring terminal is getting replaced if it hasn't already. All the AC side I've already gone through. All the terminals for all the switches. The ground bus and the neutral bus. Neutral bus for the AC outlets. The big reason for putting these fuse panels in was to get rid of all these random inline fuses that were added everywhere and have dedicated switches for the fans, electric head, the macerator pumps, and just to organize in general. Okay. Moment of truth. Works. That should make Danielle happy, hopefully. And no, not because it's the kitchen. It's because she likes fans. One fuse in for our test fan that Danielle just installed right here.
It works!
It works!
That's on low. Put it on high. Yeah, there you go.
Nice. This is how we teach our kids how to do stuff.
Go in the closet.
You're in the closet.
The tiny closet.
Doing wiring?
Let's just...
For the fan?
Yeah, for the front room fan. Look how tiny this space is. Okay, that's it. She done got up in there. Like, this is my hand. It ain't like, nah. Okay, I got it in. Smash it. All right, it should release. Hold on, don't pull the wire. Hold on.
So back to our main distribution wiring. A lot of this runs through our new switches we installed. This was a little bit of a job in itself, but the old ones were pretty wonky, and once again, safety was in order. I did not realize just how much money we spend on all the stainless hardware.
Too much.
Too much. So I'm going to be mounting these from the back, and if I just put them in here all the way, they're going to stick out about right there. Not a huge deal, but I wanted to kind of space them back. I got these nylon 1-inch spacers that I'm going to put here, and we're going to see if I can get this more of a flush mount. So let's see. That's pretty flush, I would say.
I want to do it. I want to do it.
So it looks like something like that right there. The spacers are there, and then nuts and bolts hold them in. Or washers and nuts hold them in. So while I'm replacing all of this wiring and wiring up all the new switches, I am also going to be replacing the wiring to the alternator and also to the starter. These are both 2-gauge. I'm going to replace them with 1/0. So I'm going to basically run them both together. Up and over in the corner, the starter one's going to go to that starter switch fed off of both batteries. And the alternator one is going to continue down to the distribution panel to one of these battery fuses. So why would my alternator have an extra wire going to the starter on the same wire that the main starter wire is hooked up to the starter battery? Originally there was an extra wire going from the starter lug, which went from the starter battery, and it jumpered over to the alternator, which hooks up to the house battery. So essentially the house bank and the starter bank were all tied together here. This one's going to be for the starter. Okay, today I have Marley with me. We're going to tackle most of the rest of the wiring for now, because it's never going to be done. So here's what we're doing today. Where's the button? I can't find the button. Where's the flippy around button? Okay, Marley, did you see what we've done so far? All of our new switches have been installed, and I just finished wiring them all last time we were here. So all new switches, a lot of new wiring. I have a 1-2 all switch for the starter, so I have wires coming from the starter battery and the house bank just in case. So generally this is going to be on 1. It's only here just in case we ever need to switch it to 2. If we ever need to manually connect all the batteries, we can put it to 1 too, just by this switch. The house is just an on-off switch from the circuit panel to the DC panel. That's what we're doing right now, replacing this old 6-gauge wire with this new 1/0 wire, which is already ran here and connected to this 80-amp breaker. All right, Mar, take your 1/2-inch wrench and let's loosen the old 6-gauge connection here. There you go. Now you should be able to take it off by hand. There's 2 washers. Yeah, there's a lock washer. Don't lose any of them.
I'll put my hand here.
No pressure. Don't lose them.
Said exactly, that's pressure.
You got this.
How tight should it be?
And I forgot the negative side. Positive side's coming off of this lug here. The negative side's coming off of the opposite end. And the negative end goes
It's 6 something.
straight into this new shunt for our battery monitor. Today's goal is to finish cleaning up most of my wiring here, finish cleaning all this mess up and tie all these extra wires up and out of the way, get my ACR hooked up. That's the charging relay for the batteries for the start bank and the house bank that combines both bank. When the voltage is high enough, it combines both banks so that it charges both the house bank and the starter battery. I've already got the ground wire hooked up. I just have 2 more wires. The start isolation wire in the middle is basically this blue wire right here hooked up to the starter wire. So while it's cranking, it separates the 2 banks so that you're not starting off of all the batteries. It only starts off of the starting battery. And then when you're not cranking, it goes back to combining the 2. And lastly, there is an LED light built on this thing, but there's a separate port for an LED light. I'm going to put this little green LED light and I'm going to mount it somewhere right here and label it so that I know when it's lit up. Both the house bank and the starter bank are tied together and all of them are charging. For reference, white with a blue stripe goes to the temperature sender for the dummy light. Blue with a black stripe, that's not being used, and I have a red with a black stripe, which I'm going to redo this, butt connector, all kind of crazy stuff. This goes to my Balmar regulator for the alternator. So I need to clean all this up, get this rewired, and relocate this inside. I'm happy that I finally got all my wiring all nice and tidied up and zip tied all over the place. So that's going to pretty much wrap up some of the wiring we've been working on. If you've made it this far into the video, I'm sorry I took a break from video making for a bit. Life's just been pretty busy, as you can imagine. I do still have plans to make more, as you can see here. I still have quite a bit more footage from more boat work to a couple of our outings, lightning damage, new anchor, solar install. So thanks again for watching, and well, here's the end of the video.
Alright, Ryan's gonna get in the hole.
Hey! Look at my way.
You are. You're gonna go right over top of me after we get this on the bolts.
3 years of owning this boat, and I've never tried to get inside the engine
In the engine bay.
room, but if I can fit in here, then I can at least kind of call it an engine room.
How are you gonna get out?
That will be the fun part. Hopefully
don't
we
know.
don't have to call the fire department to
I
get
have a-
Daddy out of the hole.
I have a spot for one of my feet, but I don't want to bust anything over here, so just for purposes of this video.
Daddy's gonna get
Look, I'm in. Now I'm stuck on something. Okay.